Welcome to Glowing Success. My name is Heidi and I am your host. This podcast is for beauty entrepreneurs. Join me weekly as we dive into the beauty industry's ins and outs, from business strategies, top-selling services, and taboo topics. I will be interviewing industry leaders with empowering stories and game-changing insights. Let's illuminate your path to success together. Let's jump into this next episode. Welcome back to Glowing Success. I'm so excited about my interview today. So I'm interviewing Jill, and she's going to be sharing all about Reiki. So if you have ever experienced Reiki, this will be a great episode to listen to. But if you don't know anything about Reiki, this is also a good episode to listen to. So without further ado, welcome, Jill.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yay! I'm so excited about this episode. I truly believe in energy and feeling people's energy and all of that. So I'm just so excited to dive right in. Now, if the listeners don't know who you are, can you give a little bit of information about yourself?
Sure. I'm a licensed Reiki master teacher. My business is called the Minnesota Reiki Center for Healing and Training. And I got into Reiki about 20 years ago is when I first got certified in Reiki. I became a Reiki teacher in 2007. I went to the Aveda Institute in 2006, and that's how I met you, which is so awesome. I was an educator there in the massage department.
Yep.
And taught the massage and bodywork program there for about, 6 years or so. While I was kind of getting my business and stuff going. And so originally was introduced to Reiki through a friend. Prior to that, I worked as an artist and a designer. And so I had a lot of stress and anxiety, and a friend had suggested, you should try Reiki and see if that helps. And so I didn't know what it was. And this was back probably 24 years ago. I mean, it's hard to remember all these dates, so I'm kind of guessing on some of it.
Yep.
But somebody had just recommended you should try it out. I tried it. I liked it. I realized you could learn it. And so that's what brought me into learning it. And at first I never thought, well, I'm going to do this professionally or it's going to be my job. But a lot of things started changing after I took my first Reiki 1 and 2 class, which was just with somebody local in Minnesota. And it was just me. I was in a 1-person class. And I guess what I would say is that a lot of changes, emotional, physical, and spiritual changes started happening, which they say can happen. But, I didn't really expect anything to happen, I guess. And that eventually led me to wanting to learn it. And then that sort of changed my whole life, which led me to being like, I think I want to do this professionally. And so that then led me to doing massage because I was guided, by the energy to learn some other skills, like learn something else that you could do in addition to Reiki, because, at that time, 20 years ago, it was still pretty new. I mean, people were just starting to accept massage into the world, and it was considered prior to that kind of fluff and spa and that's all great, but people didn't understand like the health and the therapeutic benefits of it. So Reiki was, something not very many people really knew about. And so that led me to the massage. And because of that and combining the two, eventually, fast forward, I don't teach at Aveda anymore. I do Reiki now full time. Now I'm a Reiki and sound healer. But after doing 15 years of massage and Reiki and teaching and all of that, initially, energy work and Reiki was what I wanted to do. So by learning other skills that worked well with Reiki, it helped me to become a full-time Reiki teacher and practitioner.
Amazing. I mean, I really felt it when I was in massage school. Like I was fascinated because even at that time you would talk about it and it was really fascinating and cool. And like you said, back in those days, maybe it just wasn't really talked about enough, right? Like we heard about things, we talked about things, but until you really feel something, like you were saying earlier in your story, like it's just you can't describe it.
Yeah, it's true. And, doing it at the massage school or working at a
Yeah.
massage school, it was a perfect way to introduce students who maybe hadn't thought about it before or were a little skeptical or interested but weren't sure. Plenty of people kind of go into that, in like massage and even like aesthetics and stuff, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different directions like that you can take. And I think when people start to be introduced to energy, they realize, oh, maybe this is a direction I want to take.
Yeah.
That I can combine these, or I can, do this, but I could also do that, and so you
Yeah.
get exposed to it and it's fascinating. And then, then the next thing you know, you're buying crystals.
Yeah. I mean, it's really it's really kind of how it is, but it is a layering effect. Once you
Yeah.
learn something, like then you kind of open something else up. And so that it's really fascinating. And I will say, but like I, I think one of the things that resonates with people is like you have to be open to these things, right? I mean, I had to be open to feeling people's energies when I was doing massage. So if you're kind of mindset wise closed off to some of those things, like it's not necessarily going to affect you in certain ways, or maybe it will. Now, for anybody that's listening that doesn't really understand Reiki, how would you give, like, what do you tell people when they say, well, what is Reiki? Just in case they don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, it really depends on the audience because, it encompasses so much. But typically, if you looked it up, it would be a Japanese healing technique that lowers stress and promotes relaxation. And I like that because in a lot of industries, we're looking for ways like, well, how does it benefit me? And lowering stress is a huge benefit to everyone, and everyone, has stress in their life. So if we start getting into curing and healing, you start to lose people. Also, people have um, various different religious biases that they can start projecting. And so what I want people to understand that Reiki isn't religious, it's spiritual. But it doesn't have anything to do with like worshiping or anybody can do Reiki, and everybody is welcome to learn Reiki and anybody can learn it. And so, I teach people who have, strong religious beliefs to people who have no religious beliefs at all, and they could be in the same class together. And we all in common want to help the world and people and animals. And so that's what brings us all together. And so when we talk about it, one thing is that Reiki is in a lot of the hospitals in the world. It's used because it's the least invasive of all therapies. And there's a lot of medical research, such as speeding up recovery time, again, lowering stress. It can lower pain reduction. So, like in places, where people could be terminal and medication doesn't work, that it can reduce pain. I've had clients who've had surgery where they're 10 days ahead of recovery time. And this is all documented information, which is why it is in hospitals. So when we talk about the stress lowering capabilities of Reiki, that explanation that I gave you is perfect because it speaks to something that we can measure, which is that it lowers stress and it helps to relax us. And if we think about stress as being the number one cause to illness, then we can look at Reiki as something that's not alternative, but it becomes complementary care. So like to your facials, to your self-care, to your psychotherapy. I work with a lot of
Right.
different people who are receiving therapy, and so this helps them. Also people who are under the medical care of a physician or doctor. So really it can benefit everybody, because regardless, most, like I said, things that are manifesting in our emotional, spiritual, and physical body come from repetitive stress. So in
Yeah.
addition, it's also energy work. You can touch people, you don't have to touch people.
Right.
But overall, really that is how I would explain it to somebody, is that it lowers stress and brings us out of fight or flight, and into that rest and restore.
Yeah. Which, everything, our whole bodies are made up of energy. Everything in the world is made up of energy. Everything around us is made up of energy. So it's interesting because why would we not think that we could, you know, not play with that? That's the wrong word, but like, you know, use something that would heal. And so that's pretty amazing. Now, there's so many questions I have going forward. So stay with me here, people. But so I think, if a person hasn't been introduced to Reiki or energy healing in general, and they see, they listen to your explanation, they're like, okay, I'm starting to understand. But then when they see things out in the world that are infused with Reiki, do you have maybe a little bit more explanation towards that? So if somebody's a little bit confused of like how something can be infused with Reiki or how something can be,
Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
maybe go into
So
a little bit of
Reiki, again,
detail
it's
with
a
that if you can.
complementary therapy. And a lot of times people think about it as something that people do. And it's more, the Reiki energy is more about being than doing. And in the beginning, when we think about Reiki, because like our whole lives, we're sort of culturally conditioned to do stuff. So, what do I do? In our analytical, logical brain, like when we see Reiki, we see somebody giving Reiki to somebody, right? Like doing something.
Right.
So that's just one way of working with Reiki energy. Like it is something that you can do on its own, and you can provide Reiki services or treatments or classes and so forth in working with just the Reiki energy. But a lot of people may work in a different field. Like I mentioned, you could work in the medical field, you could work in the wellness or like beauty industry, massage or acupuncture type of work. You could also kind of work more in the world of being like a psychic and a medium. There's different directions that people can take with the energy. So they learn, or they may have other skills. So they might be already walking in, like I might have a nurse walking in that doesn't necessarily want to change her job, but she wants to have access, or he or they, want to have access to the energy, and not necessarily, have a job giving Reiki to people. And they want to essentially just make their life easier. So instead, they're tapping into that energy of Reiki, and they're using it in a way that they can lower their stress. And so that being said, people then combine it with other types of work for the intuitive guidance, and other ways and benefits that Reiki can be used. So like infusing it with something, let's say like a facial, your
Yeah.
esthetician may not do anything different in the facial, but by
Hmm.
tapping into the energy of Reiki, that facial is going to be a lot more intuitive.
Mm.
And so therefore, as you're working on that person is also receiving the stress relieving qualities of the Reiki energy while they're getting Reiki. You could also put
Yeah.
Reiki into the different products that you use. So for instance, you're infusing the products with life force energy. So then these products that are going into the person are also, they're being cleared. We're expressing gratitude. Sometimes like we buy things and we don't think about the energetic connection to other people or what that energy might be carrying with it. So as a Reiki person, you're aware of the different energies that things and items and that have and how that can affect people. So you can be putting that energy into, the products, into the person. Afterwards, the practitioner can use the Reiki to clear their own energy, the space, the table or the chair that they're sitting in, to, keep the energy clear. So it can be used in any sort of work type of a situation, and
Wow.
imbued or infused in, depending on what somebody's doing. Like even to the
Wow.
extent, like maybe you work as a building contractor. Well, I work as a building contractor. Well, you could go around and be clearing out the energy of the spaces of the building, or if you're making new buildings, envisioning that each of these buildings are being built with Reiki energy, or that you're guided to the right people to help you, the lenders, the people, so you have less barriers that come up. Because if you're working with
Yeah.
the energy, sometimes we're guiding it rather than being guided. And
Yeah.
when we're guiding something, we can get in the way. And then we go, why does it
Yeah.
never work out for me the way that I want it to? And we keep going through these same things over and over again. And so we like infuse Reiki with that, and it changes things, and our connections change and our people change because we change. And
Yeah.
so we energetically are putting out a different energy, which is also drawing different energy to us. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh gosh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. I I think it's really interesting how you mentioned earlier about how you can clear a room or you can clear, your area, your working area with that because I do feel like for many service providers, it doesn't matter what you're doing in the service industry. You could be a hairstylist, you can be a nail tech, esthetician, massage therapist, doesn't matter. And I probably missed a few
Yeah.
a few
No.
people in that one, um but it is important. One of the things I learned early on in my career was, we as service providers, sometimes we're like the built-in therapist, so to speak, right? We're the place where our clients come to relax and maybe sometimes unload. We're sometimes the place where this is the only place that they feel safe to share something that they don't share with other people. And that's great when you get to that level with your clients, right? But at the same time, I did find it to be very important to clear your energy after that because now you're going to bring that heaviness or maybe that sadness or maybe that anger, whatever that client may be brought into your room, and then you don't want to necessarily bring it to your next appointment or bring it to home or bring it on with you wherever. And so I find that this might be a good thing for people in the industry, not only for their clients, and we can talk a little bit about that too, but a little bit more about that because I feel like you've shared a lot about how service providers can utilize Reiki, and but this might be a good just practice for somebody of their own of just clearing the space. I mean, that sounds really huge to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of where, like, in the Reiki classes that I teach, students come in, and it's not uncommon for people to just be like, I feel guided to this, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And a lot of the, beginning for a lot of people is I just felt guided to be here. And so it's like, well, just start with that and start working with the energy for whether it is your space or yourself, like doing yourself, because that's where it starts. And so anybody can learn it. And as people realize, they go, oh, it becomes more clearer because they find out like, over time, they start to look at themselves like 6 months later or a year later and go, wow, a lot has changed in my life, and then
Yeah.
they realize, oh, that all happened after taking the Reiki class. And so, when people come in and they learn about these things, it's like, yeah, you don't have to know why you're there. That's the cool thing about energy work and Reiki
Yeah.
specifically, is that most people are showing up without any idea. And so then some people may not change careers or whatever, but they find that this is very beneficial, like you said, clearing their space, clearing their energy, as more of a self-care type of a tool, so they can keep doing the work that they're doing and, not having as much transference as they might have if they don't have something, to protect them. Because like you said,
Right.
we do serve as, Reiki therapists, massage therapists, it's like,
Yes.
it's in there.
Therapists.
We're actually not, but yes, people
Right.
do.
Right.
And even though, like, when you're working with Reiki, you're not really taking on other people's energy. That's not what you're doing. And sometimes people are like, oh, I feel so bad. Like, you're taking all of this on, they feel bad that they're coming in and
Mm-hmm.
dumping that. And it's like, but it's not like that at all. Like, actually, this is
No.
what I do. But at times, I mean, you can still get burned out just because work is work. And if you're working a lot
Right.
and you're seeing a lot of people and, those sorts of things can still happen. So I do think it's important, the self-care part of it, and even for Reiki practitioners, to be thinking about that and using their Reiki and other types of self-care things to take care of their own energy, because you can't do it if you're, not in a good place.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's kind of true for everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy how you said that sometimes you feel drawn to things, because I was reminded of like when I used to do massage. Now I don't do any massage anymore, and sometimes I do miss it. But like when I did do massage, there was sometimes where I just felt drawn to certain parts of the body, right? So like my energy, their energy, I was picking up on certain parts of the body, and then I come to find out like, well, that's an area of their body that is hurting, or that's an area of the body that correlated with something that maybe they had health wise going on. Because I don't know if any massage therapists are listening to, but every part of your body is kind of connected in some way, or even if you've like studied reflexology. But so it's kind of interesting, because I can definitely see how sometimes you just feel drawn to it. Like I feel drawn to have this conversation with you. I felt drawn to having, Reiki session. Now, when I was on your website, I saw that Reiki sessions sometimes, you had mentioned earlier, they can be virtual or on the phone, or they can be in person. Now, one of the things that kind of stuck out to me was during certain sessions, like, I think if anybody's had any other, I don't know, energy sessions, or if you've had just massage sessions or anything body work wise, sometimes it does take a lot of different senses. So for me, like sometimes it's about the smell, the sound, and actually the energy. Now, on your website, it does mention that you use different modalities with your Reiki sessions. Can you go a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, we talked about in the beginning that sometimes, people do combine Reiki with other modalities, and that can be helpful because just people may need other things. And I always say it's one person's not going to heal you. It takes a village. And every Reiki practitioner is a little different. And so I think that that's beautiful. And I always encourage my students, don't try to be like somebody else. Like, what do you want to do? Like, Reiki is all about like discovering your authentic self and the different things that make you unique and how you can help other people. And so for one, massage might be what somebody needs, but for another person, it might be acupuncture or something, right? Or maybe you need both, or you need chiropractic. I mean, there could be some other types of things that you might need in addition to Reiki. But Reiki can be very powerful on its own. And I do plenty of sessions working just with Reiki and, have profound results where people have, seeked medical care or other types of care, and it hasn't worked, which has led them to Reiki, and then that works. But I also think in conjunction with doing all of these other things, that's also been instrumental. So I would never say like, well, only Reiki again, like it's not alternative. It's in addition to. So for me, I've just sort of followed my heart as far as what I've wanted to do. And that came through like healing. So in the beginning, it was, first I had a couple Reiki sessions, and you don't have to have a Reiki session to take a Reiki class, but at the time I didn't know what Reiki really was. And so I started with Reiki appointments, which led me, as I mentioned, to taking some classes. And I didn't really know at the time, but through that profound healing that had happened, I finally was able to like intuitively listen to what do I really want to do. And it was actually, I want to do this. And it wasn't something that I wanted or thought like as a kid, hey, I'm going to do this when I get older. And I had a job as an artist and things like that. So, I mean, it's not like I didn't like what I was doing, but it was just very surprising. And so, I had sort of had like an inner voice guide me and say, you need to get more hands-on to get good at this. You're going to need to be able to work with people, and you need practice, and you need to work on some bodies and stuff. And so I was like naturally guided to massage. And I really like that combination, but it might not be the combination for everyone. There's a lot of really wonderful combinations out there. So if you already have started on this journey, and I meet people in so many different places in their journey. For some people, Reiki is the beginning. For other people, they may have been in a wellness industry for several years, and now they're just looking to add something to it. So they're not really looking to change. They're just looking to, maybe, like with massage, it was always about save your hands, find some other things that can save your hands, because for a massage therapist, for most people, the reason why they get out of the work is because of like burnout, like they end up getting injured or burned out. And so we're always talking about save your hands, working out, finding other things, other tools and techniques. I had already had Reiki, so it was just natural for me to continue in that journey. And so for about, I did like massage and Reiki for about 15 years, I would say.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And that was sort of my main tools. And I kind of had I had my Reiki appointments, I had my massage appointments, and then I had my Reiki and massage combination appointments,
Oh, yes.
But over the years, it kind of, my business sort of morphed, and, and I know like anybody who has a business, when, including you, and you're moving and all the changes that come up.
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to do this. And now I think I'm going to go back and do, these things are natural and normal. The Reiki has sort of always guided it. And so at one point it led me into sound healing. And as a young person, I played piano, I took singing lessons, I played the flute. I was really involved in music when I was younger. And then though I like listening to music and things like that, once I, got out and bought a house and this kind of thing, it's sort of like, well, now I've got a job and that didn't become my career. So I'm not going to do anything with it. But I had experienced at this point several injuries from massage, like a frozen shoulder and various things that was starting to kind of show me that I couldn't continue on, even though I had a really strong Reiki practice and I was saving my hands. The massage is just too physical, and most massage therapists last about 5 years. So at that point, like 15 years is a pretty long time. But that same voice that guided me into massage many years ago, I could hear saying, "Hey, we're going to move into the sound healing." And sound healing, involves a lot of different types of instruments that are, that are used for healing. So, I mean, we know things like beautiful symphonies and Beethoven and things like that can provide healing. We know that your favorite song on the radio could provide healing. So, like you talked about smells and various things, environments like sound is obviously one of those things that can facilitate healing. So my old musical training kind of came up, and I was so excited because I'm like, I finally get to use it for something. And then where I focused was with like crystal singing bowls. Some people maybe like gongs or metal Tibetan bowls, or maybe the Native American flute or the Indian flute, or different types of flutes, drums. We can chanting and
Yeah.
toning. These are the sort of things that when we talk about sound healing, a person's beautiful voice, or even somebody who may not have like a technically amazing voice, but still is really good at projecting their voice and singing and can heal, even if they're not a classically trained singer or something. So it's not necessarily about having a background in it. It just happened that I did have a background in these things, and now I felt guided to do that. So I got into that several years ago, and then I just transitioned sort of out of the massage into the sound healing. And so to kind of wrap up what I do, it's sort of been a journey where for years it was more Reiki and body work. I also did like foot reflexology, and other types of spa treatments and things. And then it shifted into Reiki and sound healing. I also like to do some oracle cards with people, which are, it's similar to like a tarot reading, but it's a little different, and just kind of how it works, but it's similar. But mostly what I'm doing is working with people with the Reiki energy, and then I'm working with alchemy crystal singing bowls, and different frequencies like 528 hertz, 432 hertz,
Yes.
different types of frequencies that are known to promote healing, and bring people into deeper states of entrainment, allowing them to get really deep and relax. So like shutting off the brain noise, and which is very difficult these days for a lot of people. And then they get into a very deep state. And then I channel the Reiki energy, usually through some sort of guided meditation or prayer. So it's very spiritual. And
It's amazing.
yeah, and then sometimes we work with some oracle cards for additional guidance and so forth. But these aren't like like psychic readings and things like that. I just want to be clear that those are
Right.
different types of modalities, and some people will
Right.
bring their healing work into those directions, just like they might go more in a medical, or there's different directions. So you don't have to have
Yeah.
those abilities, but most
Right.
people who do this are intuitive. So
Yeah.
it's sort of morphed, but I do keep it pretty
It's awesome.
pretty simple, as far as like I don't do a lot of different things. I've done a lot of different things in my life, but as far as like what I'm currently doing, it really is focused a lot around the sound and the Reiki, and then just kind of getting out of the way, and then just channeling the energy and the sound, and then I intuitively play the music based on how I'm guided. So I don't have like, oh, I do this exact same thing for every person. Just like my
Right.
Reiki sessions, just like if you were going to get a massage, you've got an
Yep.
intuitive massage, or even, working in aesthetics, there's an intuitive, then there's more of a, okay, this is the approach. And sometimes, I got to
Yes.
do this approach because otherwise you could get hurt, so
Yeah. 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 Well, and it sounds to me like sometimes clients will come to these sessions probably with things that they're, like you said, they're working on maybe physically or they're working on emotionally, or maybe they're just looking for that guidance. And so I'm guessing like, yeah, that kind of sometimes will guide the session in itself. Now, when it comes to service providers, so I know some listeners are listening right now and they are probably thinking, this might be something good for me because I do feel like I work with a lot of people that I really do want to promote more of that relaxation. I do want to help them lower their stress. So I, encourage you guys, like if you're feeling drawn to something, always look into it. Always, trust that intuition of like why you being drawn to something, because there's something there, and the one thing that I feel like we're probably taking away from this whole conversation so far is Reiki is really one of those things that you can really, you know, it really pairs well with the services that a lot of service providers, specifically in the beauty industry, offer. And so that's really cool. I mean, that's really fascinating to hear that because I'm sure there's going to be somebody listening that is like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. This is exactly what my intuition has been kind of trying to tell me to go towards. This will help my clients in so many ways. This will help me in so many ways. Earlier when you're talking about burnout or just people changing their careers, yes, I'm changing my career a little bit to like more of the coaching side of it and helping other, either new business owners or, established business owners market in different ways and expand their business or just make more in sales or just get that confidence to kind of get out there. But, I had that feeling and that draw. So I like that you were talking about that earlier because we do need to follow those. We have to follow wherever your body, mind, spirit, is kind of taking you. So that's really cool that Reiki is just one of those things that just feels like at home. It feels like one of those things where you're like, this feels really good. So anybody listening, I encourage you, reach out. Now, Jill, we have talked about so much stuff. I'm loving this conversation because it's really taught me a lot about how Reiki, how some service providers um, utilize Reiki in their practice, maybe your story behind it, which I love hearing about. Now, if anybody's interested in taking your classes or anybody's interested in actually getting Reiki from you, I will also put this in the show notes, but where can they find you?
Well, they can find me, at my website, I would say. I've got a couple URLs, and so I just want to make sure, like, that I'm directing people to the right one because we're on here, so I want to make it easy for them to remember. One is
Yep,
just
yep.
minnesotareiki.com. Or mnreiki.com, or mnreikicenter.com. So any of those URLs would take you to my website. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So Minnesota.Reiki Center on Instagram, the Minnesota Reiki Center for Healing and Training. I'm on Facebook and TikTok. I'm under my name, Jill Teal. Otherwise, it's like Minnesota Reiki and Sound Healing or something. I think that's what I am on TikTok. So that can kind of also give you a feel of even some of the sound healing. I've got videos of various different things and stuff, which can be helpful for people to see a little bit more. And I teach,
experience it.
and I teach all levels of classes from beginner to master to advanced trainings, Karuna Reiki, and I do specific trainings with animals. Now you can, after taking a basic Reiki class, which is kind of like, this is where we're starting, you can give Reiki to yourself and other people. So if you were in a profession after completing a class, you would be able to start working with your clients right away with this. So you could start using this right away.
That's
And I
amazing.
have a lot of people, different people, estheticians that work with this, and it is amazing seeing their businesses and kind of how Reiki comes in and guides it. And
Yeah.
it just enhances it, you know, brings
Yeah.
more, just I think what they want in their practice, like what you always want in a practice, but you're trying to figure out, like, okay,
Yes.
how do I do this? And so you know, it's in thinking about that, it's amazing, and how it just
Yeah.
is so unique for each person and their experience. So you
Yeah.
know, but if you want to like go all the way, I mean, I offer all of the classes. So if you like me and
That's
you wanted
amazing.
to, you know, I am a source of somebody that's been doing this for a long time. So you know, I've written several articles for the Reiki News magazine.
Yes.
Um, and
Which is amazing. And I see that some of them are out of state. Specifically, we're talking about out of Minnesota, and then some of them are in different states. Is that correct?
for what is that for?
Like retreats,
Oh,
or like some of the classes and retreats that you teach.
yeah, so I'm the Minnesota Reiki Center for Healing and Training, and so as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a licensed teacher. Anybody that takes like the Reiki master level and can teach would be like a certified Reiki teacher. So licensing is an advanced teacher training program, which is like 1,000 additional hours, which takes 3 to 4 years to complete. So I've taken my Reiki classes multiple times, and I've also completed this 1,000 hour advanced teacher training program. So I'm licensed through the International Center for Reiki Training. And so I'm my own business, and licensed through the International Center for Reiki Training. And then I teach and train other people and certify them to be able to, you know, be practitioners or teachers. And then if you decide that Reiki is something that you want to do and it becomes like your thing, like me, licensing is kind of a next level up, but it's not required to work with the energy and to teach. So in where like being a licensed teacher, there's only about 40 of us in the world. And
Wow. Oh,
yeah, so I do teach people from other places. Right now I'm mentoring somebody in South Korea. And you know, I'm going to be part of a retreat doing a sound healing Reiki presentation in Sedona this summer. And you know, the owner lives in Hawaii, and so I've gone to retreats and things out there, and so it's really exciting. You know, it's like, yes, I'm a local business and I teach local and I have in-person sessions and classes here in Minnesota, but people can join because I offer hybrid and online options. And so often I do have people coming in from other states and other countries and so forth. They might be driving in or they might be joining, you know, through Zoom. But because I'm a licensed teacher, my reach is a lot further. But I still, you know, I'm a local person. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's helpful though, because some of my listeners might not be local to
Yeah.
Minnesota. So that's why I
Yeah,
asked that too, because I
absolutely.
was like, well, what if somebody's listening and they're not local to us? But that's
They could still
amazing.
join.
Oh,
They could still join me.
I know, right? Yes. Well, if this sounds something that you are interested in, you guys reach out. Like I said, I'll put everything in the show notes. But other than that, thank you for coming on
You're
today, Jill. I
welcome.
appreciate your
Thank you for
time.
having me. It was so great to connect. I'm so happy that you invited me for your podcast. It's always great to talk to people about Reiki and provide more
Yes,
information.
I love it. Yes. Well, thanks
You're
again.
welcome.
I hope hope you liked that episode and found something useful or a tip that you can use immediately. If you are wanting more marketing tips, business tips, or anything like that, I have a lot of resources on my website. So I have PDFs that you can download for free. So look in your show notes. There should be a link in the show notes that you can click on and it'll take you right to my coaching website. And thanks for listening.